Hello YouTube, I'm about to hit 5,000 miles today in my 2025 Elantra N with the 6-speed manual, and I wanted to make a video. And you know what, I kind of want to change the format up, so I actually want to break it down by category today. So I want to talk about engine, transmission, suspension, the actual car itself, like interior quality, and overall value. So let's get into it. So before going section by section, I guess just real quick, the philosophy behind this car, why I bought this car. I miss having something sporty and agile. I've had real sports cars for about 4 years. And coming from a Jeep, I was originally planning on buying a new car next year because my wife and I have ambitions of starting a family. And something like this just makes more sense for that. There's probably a few reasons, like one, actually being able to put rear-facing kid seats in the back. But I do miss having something that you can actually drive aggressively and just makes sense overall. And I think the fact that I already put 5,000 miles on this car in only 3 months of ownership, keep in mind I have a 2-mile commute to work, goes to show that this really is a jack-of-all-trades vehicle that can do almost everything. And I find myself using it for joyrides. I find myself using it for road trips. As I fling my camera gear to the side. So breaking it down by section. Let's talk about the engine first. Just a 2-liter turbo, very modest. I know Hyundai underrates them slightly. It looks like they're making about 260 to the wheels, which 10% drivetrain loss would probably put that like a little bit over 280, maybe close to 290, I guess, depending on your calculations. Octane learned it's making probably a true 275 to the wheels, at least is what I see from the internet, which would put it just a hair below 300. That aside, the engine makes a lot of mid-range torque from the little baby turbos, very fast turbo spool. Probably one of my favorite parts about the car is the exhaust sound on it. Factory standard valved exhaust that goes from very quiet to the N mode with the custom pops and bangs. And I really enjoy the way they sound. And I think they actually really add to the car. If you hear some cars drive by where it's like pop, 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 just constant on deceleration, it's way overdone and it's just annoying. You hear the cars drive by and you're like, oh, why are you doing that, you know? But in N mode, if you're driving the car really aggressive, you just hear maybe around like 4,500 RPMs plus. You might get 1 or 2 pops. It doesn't sound obnoxious. It doesn't sound overused. And I feel like it actually kind of encourages you to drive the car a little bit harder, hold on to gears a little bit longer. I think it adds character and soul to the car. And that's something that in this segment, I really don't think too much of the competition has. We'll talk about that more later on the value side of things. Doing a little bit more of a deep dive on the engine, talking about some research on it. It seems like these cars are actually fairly reliable. It kind of seems like the only main issue with them is the high pressure fuel pumps like to give out sometimes. At least it might be if you're running like a stage 1 or stage 2 tune, it seems like that's more of an issue. But it probably wouldn't be the first stock car to have that as an issue. Parts are cheap, they're about $400 to fix that. And it doesn't really seem like there's too many other main issues with it. You know, there's not too many people. Oh, there's a Jeep getting death wobble. Okay. Yeah, as far as reliability goes, it doesn't seem like there's too many people putting holes in the side of their engine blocks with these cars. It is very similar engine design to what's been in the Veloster N since 2019, I think. I believe they did change the size of the turbo. They made it slightly larger. Stuff like servicing it is very easy. It costs about $40 to do an oil change on it myself. Funny enough, the dealership doesn't have the 0-30 oil. You have to buy it on Amazon. As far as other maintenance items, you know, if you're planning really long-term ownership, it is direct injection, so eventually intake valves will need to be cleaned because there's no port injection. Tuning potential, it seems like the engine has a lot of tuning potential in it. Stage 2 tunes probably get mid 300 wheel horsepower. One other thing I'll mention for the engine, and it's the big red flag in my opinion, and people are right to complain about is the Octane learning. So many people have beaten it with a dead horse, so I'm not going to sit here and complain about it nonstop. But I will say Octane learning is real. It is a pain in the butt. The car is noticeably faster without it, and I wish Hyundai made an update or something just to make it a little bit more communicative on when the car is working. I've had the car learn and then reset overnight without getting gas. I've done the instructions, and pretty much unless you're going on a long road trip, in my experience, I can't get it to set. So it seems like for me, you need to do like 30 minutes of highway driving on it, which if you have a long highway commute, I guess it's not a big deal. If you don't have a long highway commute, then get used to it on 15 to 16 pounds of boost. On the other hand, if the engine actually is reliable and you don't end up blowing it up thanks to the aggressive Octane learning and it actually does its job, I guess I can't really complain. And like I said, from doing my research on the forums, it seems like a lot of people are starting to kind of hit the high mileage marks on these cars, and they're not really having much in the way of issues. So maybe just leave it alone. All right, so the transmission. This car, you either get a 6-speed manual or a dual clutch. If for some reason you want to make your fun daily driver less fun, you could get a dual clutch. I would say just buy the manual if you enjoy manual transmissions. The 6-speed itself is a good transmission. Smooth shifts. The gearing is decent. I wish the gearing was slightly shorter. I think it would complement the car a bit better, but it is a good amount of torque in a front-wheel drive car, so I understand why they have it. Plus, having second gear go just slightly past 60 if you redline it, I assume so you can get that like 5 seconds 0 to 60 time if you absolutely beat on it. Related to the drivetrain, lots of people put the PowerFlex bushings in. I don't think that you need them. I drove the car for about 4,000 miles without doing it. I was planning on doing it when I bought it. I wanted to see how it was. It does get a little bit of wheel hop. The way I see it, if you're not launching it and you're not flat foot shifting from first to second, you probably could live without it. But after driving the car with all 3 bushing inserts on it, it doesn't really add much NVH. It's very slight, and I think it actually makes the car have a little bit more character. It's worth it just to do all 3, in my opinion. It makes it feel more engaging to drive. The clutch feels a little bit better. It pretty much eliminates the wheel hop. For $140 or whatever it comes out to for all 3 bushings, I highly recommend doing it. They're bushing inserts, so you're not voiding your powertrain warranty. There's just no risk of really doing anything to it, especially if you're not running super sticky tires. The devil's advocate here, some people will say stiffer mounts, something else gives. They're really just slightly stiffer bushing inserts, so I've pretty much put bushing inserts on every sporty or performance car that I've had, and it just tightens up the drivetrain just a little bit. It seems like most of the automakers, when they're tuning these street performance vehicles, they just leave a little bit too much play in them, and it makes for a little bit sloppy of a drivetrain. And to be honest, I think you'd be better off with slightly stiffer bushings and a little bit less give in the mount than actual violent wheel hop. So, like I said, I would recommend doing them. I think it's worth it. Other stuff to mention as far as the transmission goes, it does have auto rev matching. I prefer to do it myself because I think it's more fun and engaging. I do think it's a valuable feature actually to put in the car for people who are learning to drive. If this is your first manual transmission vehicle, use it to learn. So I can't complain that they have it. I know some people really enjoy that feature. Some people think it's the worst thing in the world. Could be both. Either way, you have a choice to use it or not. Handling, I would genuinely put this at a 9 out of 10 handling-wise for cars that I've driven. I find it hard to believe that this car actually puts power down as well as it does. The chassis is almost perfectly balanced as far as neutral steering goes. Very little understeer, and then you actually get lift off oversteer, so it's incredibly easy to drive at that limiting point, and it's satisfying. The car tells you what it's doing. Like I said, 9 out of 10, it's excellent. Mechanical grip, it does have 245 width tires, which is about what you would expect in something its size, but considering it's less than 3,200 pounds, that's actually a pretty good amount of mechanical grip for a car that doesn't weigh that much. Yeah, I mean, you hear my camera gear floating around. The car tells you exactly what it's doing. It's a blast to drive around turns like this. having owned a Mustang and a Challenger just on similar tires, this thing is so much more communicative as far as driving it in those like scenarios, really tight turns. Compared to a Fiesta ST that I own, it's a lot more stable, I think, because of the extra wheelbase and the track width of the car. Like I said, handling is excellent. I really enjoy driving this thing. It has that little chassis brace in the back that just adds another touch of flair. Related to handling, this thing has excellent brakes on it. Really good. 14-inch brake rotors. It only has single piston calipers, but 14-inch brakes. That puts it kind of in the class with a Golf R, but it weighs less. Significantly bigger brakes than a GTI and a WRX, GLI, other stuff in the class. This just has better brakes than it for the price. And it also has a pretty aggressive compound. One thing I noticed changing the wheels, it has heat wrap around the brake lines. Just a cool little gimmick, but I've never seen that on another performance car that I've owned. It's just cool. You can tell they really put some heart and soul into this thing. Also, doing my research, it seems like the brakes hold up really well on track days. Sure, it'd be nice to have the monoblock Brembos on it, but ultimately these brakes stop really well. So to the interior, this is another spot where I think this car really excels, actually. See these giant end bucket seats? To me, a car like this has to have nice seats. You know, I'm a big sucker for stuff like the Recaros. I love like those BMW M buckets or the Cadillac V bucket seats. You know, in my opinion, a performance car needs seats that actually hold you in for when you're driving like a maniac. They need to be comfortable. Also, honestly, I'm getting kind of old. I'm about to turn 30. I need to have heated seats. In my opinion, any car that does not have heated seats, like over a $25,000 price range, is just ridiculous. And specifically, I'm kind of coming at the Civic Type R. I do not know why they sell that without heated seats if you're using it as a daily driver. I think that is stupid. Otherwise, that car would have incredible seats. Actually, it does have excellent seats. They look sick. I'm sure they hold you in insanely well, but they're not heated. I know it sounds kind of like silly or hyper-focused, but like if you're walking outside, you're going for a late-night cruise, and you just see the N logo light up, it just gives it that extra touch of character to the car. It makes it feel like a sense of occasion walking into it. They could have just put a seat. They could have just put a regular N logo. They could have just put nothing on it and given you base model seats. But they didn't. They put some thought into it, and I really like that. Plus, the leather trim with the Alcantara center, in my opinion, is seat perfection, especially for a performance car. You don't get the slipping and sliding around that you do on an all-leather. You don't get the freezing cold in the winter. You don't get the burning sun in the summer. And on the Alcantara, having the leather trim on the outside, like on the bolstering, it stops the high wear from going in and out of the car a lot. Just big thumbs up on the seats, Hyundai. Also, the back seats match. I think on some of these cars, maybe, I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure on like the Golf R, the back seats don't match, or the Civic Type R, the back seats don't match. What is that? What is that on a car that costs over $40,000? How does the back seat not match the front? That is embarrassing. Also, Alcantara trim on the door cards. And let me just say, the back has it too. I just looked because I don't sit in the back. But anyway, Alcantara door panels. Nice leather trim steering wheel. Real handbrake. Real handbrake. I don't think that there's a single person in the world who says, I want to buy a manual and I want the little button so that I can't control it myself. Big thumbs down to everybody who doesn't put a real handbrake in a car, especially one with a manual transmission. Hyundai, thank you for putting a manual handbrake in a car with a manual transmission. That is the way it should be. Other stuff on the interior, I'm actually not a huge fan of digital gauges, but I do like the way that the N mode gauge shows you the center mounted tach. You get the boost pressure and oil temp. Big thumbs up. Individual tire pressures, which I think pretty much every car has now, but a few years ago that probably wasn't the case. The center screen is nice. I really like how you can customize all the features on it and stuff as far as the safety stuff goes. You get lane keep assist that you can turn off, because I hate lane keep assist. But for the people that like it, it's nice that it's there. I am surprised it does not have adaptive cruise control, since it has like the speed signal, you know, the speed sign camera or whatever. It knows like whatever road signs are coming up to. And it has auto assisted braking or something. I'm just surprised it doesn't have active cruise control. For me, not really a big deal because I don't really use it that much. It's worth mentioning though, because I'm surprised it doesn't have that. Blind spot checkers work great. You can customize the tone, I think, for if you want it quiet or loud. Just like how it's customizable. No wireless CarPlay. I don't know why there's no wireless CarPlay in this car. And if you want to know something funny, my wife's 23 Elantra, I think, the base model Elantra, has wireless CarPlay, and this does not have wireless CarPlay. So I need to use this stupid dongle. Deal breaker? Obviously not. You can just buy a dongle for like $40. But it would be nice if it natively had it, and I don't know why it doesn't have it, honestly, in 2025. And it's extra confusing because this car got facelifted in 2024, so it's not even like this is a model that's been around for a while. I know the exterior styling is probably a little bit controversial in this car. I think some people don't really like the red trim on it. At first, I was a little bit so-so going into it. I was really buying it for the other reasons. But the looks have actually grown on me. I like the way it looks. I think it would be boring without the red trim. I actually really like the front lip design and the side skirt. I like how it all comes together. The spoiler, I'm not a huge fan of the spoiler. I think it actually would have looked better if it was kind of like a lower mounted duckbill style. Do I like it? Do I dislike it enough that I would change it? I actually did look. I couldn't find. I would actually buy like a nice carbon fiber duckbill for if it was like maybe $500, but I can't find one. I only see one on eBay. I don't think it's real carbon fiber. It kind of looks cheap. That said, the overall styling on the outside, I actually kind of like it. To the final topic, and probably one of the most important for some people, value. I think this car is an outstanding value as a new car, and I think it's an excellent value as a used car for a couple reasons as well. Let's talk about the used car, because it's actually probably the simplest. These Elantra N's have been around since 2022, and right now you could maybe get one, if you're looking at like 3 years old, 30,000 miles, they're kind of in the mid-20s. What you get for that, I think, is actually pretty good. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find something better in the mid-20s. And also, a couple reasons, because of the stuff that's standard on this car. Like I said, you get the standard bucket seats, you get the standard valved exhaust. You kind of get all the goodies. Really, you only get two trims, manual and automatic. That's it. There's really no searching for like, oh, I want these options. I need to go travel halfway across the country to buy a used car with these options. Nope. All the Elantra N's have all the goodies. That actually is awesome for shopping used cars. And I think that's pretty valuable, having only one trim that already has all the goodies that you want on it. Also, used car value. I know Hyundai's warranty is probably the best on new cars. That is only on new cars that you get the 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty. However, used cars for the second owner get 6 years and 60,000 miles, which is still better than every other manufacturer. As far as I know, they're pretty much all 5 year, 60,000, or even in Volkswagen's case, I think it's 4 years, 50,000. I'm pretty sure they actually have the worst powertrain warranty out of any automaker. So it's nice to know that even second-hand, you would still get the most time and right up there on the mileage as well. Now, that's a whole separate topic of will Hyundai actually warranty it if you have issues. I've heard complaints. Likewise, I've heard complaints about other automakers too. So take that for what you will. It's at least nice to have something to stand back on in case your car does blow up. To the new car value, though, any stuff in this class, I'm going to say sedan, sporty, or even four-door, count a hatchback as well. Something that makes your daily drive not miserable and gives you the choice of having a manual transmission and just a little bit of fun in your life, I'll consider. So compared to the Volkswagen GTI, the GTI is about $4,000 less, and they gave up the manual option, so I don't really consider it a true competitor. You have about 35 horsepower less, which I think the GTI is underrated too, so it's not a huge difference, but it's noteworthy. You get less, smaller brakes, less mechanical grip on the tires, narrower tires. So you don't get the valved exhaust, and the exhaust also sounds pretty depressing in it. Very boring. Ironically enough, what's closer to this car than the GTI is the Jetta GLI. Obviously, it's a sedan. They actually do still make a manual transmission on the GLI and not the GTI. That's interesting. I'm not going to go into the whole rant on that, but it has to do with the global platform or whatever. Anyway, that car has even less power, and it also has obnoxiously long gearing, so you're buying the manual transmission for fun of shifting it, but yet you have a car where second gear goes to 80 miles an hour, and you know what, if you're not making 600 horsepower, you don't need a second gear that goes to 80 miles an hour. It just makes the car boring. So that's a big thumbs down to the GLI. You don't have the fancy bucket seats, although you do get ventilated seats in the GLI, so that's worth mentioning too. And I'm sure that car's a lot more comfortable, but all the performance stuff, if you're buying it for the sporty or the performance nature of it, the GLI is worse in almost every metric. It doesn't have the valved exhaust. It doesn't sound nice. It doesn't have the 245 with tires for good handling. It has tiny brakes. Really not much else in the way of front-wheel drive competition, but let's talk about the all-wheel drive competition. So the WRX and the GR Corolla. The WRX is significantly slower than this car from a roll, and actually some videos online, if you get a good launch on this car, it's even equivalent to it from a dig, like up to 60, which is pretty funny. But anyway, you get the extra weight penalties, you get the extra drivetrain loss penalties, you get bad fuel economy in the WRX compared to this, just for it to be less exciting to drive, I guess. And then other performance aspects, the WRX doesn't sound very good. You don't get a valved exhaust. The bucket seats are a premium for the Recaro buckets, which, to be fair, at least they are an option on that. So overall, the WRX, unless you need all-wheel drive, which, disclaimer, I'm very lucky that I live somewhere where I do not need all-wheel drive. If I lived further up north, I would probably want to have all-wheel drive, and I would probably buy a GR Corolla. Which leads me to my next point, the GR Corolla. They're over $40,000 starting, and that's for like a base model manual transmission now. As far as I know, the base model, you don't get heated seats in, but you do get the nice GR bucket seats, which look pretty cool. I actually really like the way they look. Performance-wise, the GR Corolla has a bit more power, but it actually ends up being almost exactly the same speed as this car. You know, if you look up some of the races online of auto reviewers who are lucky enough to have both cars in their possession, the Elantra N is slightly faster than the GR Corolla, and it also handles slightly better. But it's not all-wheel drive. So if you need all-wheel drive, that's something to consider. And like I said, if I live somewhere a little bit colder and I wanted a manual all-wheel drive hot hatch, I would probably buy the GR Corolla. So to the last and final competitor, the one that I was actually most closely considering, is the Civic Type R. One, I absolutely love the way the Type R looks. I like the extra bump in the straight line performance. I like the extra bump in handling. I'm sure that thing running 265 with tires, and the extra suspension geometry changes that they've done, if we're talking from a nerdy perspective, is pretty cool. Pretty much they just added a couple extra links in the front, and it helps eliminate torque steer and improve handling. So from a performance aspect, I actually love the Type R. It was right within my budget, and the reason that I did not buy it, there's just a couple too many compromises with it, in my opinion. And if you're spending almost $50,000 for this kind of a car, there should be no compromises. You know, in this price range, with the Elantra N, a couple compromises. Octane learning. I don't really love the wheels, the fact that it comes with summer-only tires, but those are really the only compromises that I could find. And ultimately, Octane learning is the only one that you can't fix without voiding your warranty. In the Civic Type R, you get the amazing Type R bucket seats, the red ones. Why are they not heated? Second, the exhaust sounds horrible. Yes, you could bolt a $2,000 titanium exhaust to it, and it would probably sound nice. This car, you don't need to do that. It comes with the exhaust already, and it costs $12,000 less. Third, the Type R is very harsh ride. I know you can change that with the Integra damper module. I've heard that's actually a really common thing to do. Other deal breaker, why does the Type R not have a handbrake? You have a manual transmission? Give me a manual handbrake. I already ranted about that. That you can't fix. That you can't change, no matter what you do. So the last thing, I know I was kind of ranting about the back seats don't match in the Type R. That's lame. Honestly, that's not a deal breaker, though. But what is a deal breaker is, I know that those are really big targets for theft. I've been seeing lots of people on the Type R subreddit coming out to their wheels missing, the whole car stolen. Cheesy saying, oh, just drive a manual, that's the best theft protection. It's not true. And Type Rs get stolen, they get their rims stolen. I'd just rather not deal with that, because one of the things that I actually hated about having my Dodge Challenger was always being a little bit paranoid. Like I said, I live somewhere in a nice area, I don't really have to worry about it. If I'm traveling somewhere, I don't know if I really want to leave my $50,000 Civic that I know is prone to get stolen, or my $50,000 Dodge Challenger that I know is one of the most stolen cars in America. I don't know if I want to leave that in a parking lot unattended while I'm hiking or driving through cities and going on road trips and just enjoying the car. So I know that might be a little bit paranoid, but it doesn't really seem like anybody's targeting Elantra N's. You know, kind of the same thing with my Mustang. I never really got concerned about parking it somewhere, maybe slightly, but I know they're not targets for theft. Same thing with this car. Just having something that's not a really hot stolen vehicle is kind of nice, and you can just enjoy the car for what it is instead. So that pretty much sums up my 5,000 mile review of my Elantra N. Overall, so far, really happy with the car. I really enjoy it. I find it strikes a great balance of being reasonable to use every day. It's a great road trip vehicle. It's fun to drive. And I think the fact that I hit 5,000 miles on it already is a great testament. I often find myself, if I'm going out for a cruise just to have fun, I find myself choosing it over this vehicle a lot of the time. Like I said, the space is massive on it. The trunk is huge. The handle's amazing. It's just a really awesome all-around vehicle for the price. If you're looking for a one-car solution to do all your stuff and you don't need all-wheel drive, you want to have an optional manual transmission, you want something that sounds nice without buying exhaust for it, this car is awesome. I think it's really great overall. Stay tuned for the next review. I guess I'll probably have some winter footage, see how it does in the snow. Apparently the ELSD put some work in on snow and slush. At least that's what I've read. We'll see. We don't really get too much snow here, so guess we'll find out. One other side quest that I have for this car, and I'll probably hit it before 10,000 miles, is I really want to bring it to a track day. It's kind of a bucket list thing that I've had too, is I've never been on a closed circuit race. Really want to try it with this car. From what I've seen online, it holds up really great for short circuits or even kind of like medium circuits. And I'll put that to the test. I want to figure it out for myself. And realistically, I'm not going to have one of the reviews where I've been to like 30 track days. There's none by me. It's kind of expensive burning through your consumables like tires and brakes and stuff. Although on this car, compared to something more sporty where maybe it has $300 or $400 tires, the brakes cost way more. This car actually has pretty affordable consumables. So if you are using it for a track day, maybe that's something to actually consider. Lower entry price, lower consumable costs. If you do really enjoy going to the track, this might actually be a great vehicle for you. Like I said, the handling is excellent on it. Neutral balance, or very close to neutral. You can rotate it easily with lift-off oversteer. You can push it really hard before it starts to understeer, if at all. It's just excellent vehicle. Excellent driving dynamics for that. I think one thing I'm pretty sure I didn't touch on yet, the gas mileage is actually pretty good. Hypermiling it, I was able to get high 30s. Average. For the way that I drive, I get 23 to 24 mixed use, which for comparison, my Fiesta ST I got 26, and my Challenger I got 12, and my Mustang I got 13. So the real world MPGs on this is actually pretty decent if you enjoy driving the car hard. And if you drive like a grandma and you do all highway, high 30s is achievable. As you can see in this shot, these are the wheels that I bought on the car. I really like them. I think this is the way that the car should have came. I think it looks great, handles just as good, or almost just as good. Really, the steering feel, I can't even really tell a difference between these and the 19s, and just the little sidewall protection is great. Honestly, this car kind of changed my perspective on front-wheel drive cars. You know, I had the Ford ST platform is trash compared to this. Like I said, it's leagues better than the Jetta GLI. The Civic Si is not even in the same league, honestly, and it's probably 90 to 95% of a Type R for 70% of the money, if we're being realistic. Probably 90% is, I think, fair. And on top of that, it has some better creature comforts for daily driving, like heated seats. It seats 5 people instead of 4. It's just an awesome vehicle. That's about it. I spilled some coffee on my shirt after breakfast.